Another race done, another step closer to securing both championships for Lando Norris and McLaren. Max Verstappen's struggles at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix highlighted just how far the team have fallen. Over the course of the season, he's gone from winning most races by 30 seconds, to fighting for the win, to praying for a podium finish. As the teams around them have successfully developed their cars, Red Bull have gotten worse and worse as each race has gone by, and the team have finally figured out what has gone wrong. Shockingly, the problem was first identified by Sergio Perez well over a year ago, but he was ignored and patronised by the team. But now they're paying the price. The Azerbaijan Grand Prix wasn't a complete disaster for Red Bull, but it wasn't far off. With Max Verstappen's title rival Lando Norris only managing 16th in qualifying and the Red Bulls lining up 6th and 4th, the team would have been confident of extending the gap at the top of the Drivers' Championship and potentially even holding their lead in the Constructors' Championship. What happened on Sunday, though, must have been the worst nightmare. Actually, it wasn't quite as bad as the Ricciardo Verstappen collision in 2018, but it was still pretty awful. Norris managed to haul in Verstappen late in the race, meaning he gained on the championship leader instead of losing ground. Red Bull's lead in the Constructors' Championship is gone, and probably for good. If Perez had held on for a podium finish, then they would still have lost it, but there would only be a point or two in it, rather than 20 points. Unfortunately, that collision with Carlos Sainz at the end of the race made sure that Perez's best performance of the season will be completely forgotten in a few weeks' time. So, in summary, it was a pretty bad weekend for Red Bull, but they're getting used to those at the moment. The handling and balance of the RB20 has completely gone, something Sergio Perez has been saying since last year, but more on that in a minute. The car is understeering so badly that they may as well not have a steering wheel. The team compared the handling to that of a cruise liner in Monza, and in Azerbaijan it was even worse. Max Verstappen says his Red Bull was handling so badly in Baku, his wheels lost contact with the ground in some corners. Red Bull introduced a series of changes to their car last weekend to address the handling problems which have plagued its drivers in recent rounds. Although the team was satisfied with the improvements they made, Verstappen said setup changes on his car ahead of qualifying unbalanced it. Verstappen said his car was very difficult to drive in the race. It was not enjoyable. Basically, what I was worried about already after qualifying and during qualifying was also my main issue in the race, where I had a lot of problems with the car jumping around, Verstappen said. So I was losing contact with the tarmac. There was always one wheel on each axle coming off the ground in the low-speed corners, so I was just losing a lot of lap time there. On the braking as well, the car was jumping and just a lot of sliding because of that. And we know that you don't want to do that in the race, so it all just spiraled into a lot of difficulties. Instability and a rough ride on street circuits isn't anything new to Red Bull in the ground effect era. The only race they lost last season was in Singapore, the most street circuity of all the street circuits on the calendar. Fernando Alonso ran Max close in Monaco as well. Miami and Monaco were weak points for Red Bull this season also, both rough street circuits. Unusually, Verstappen spent all his race behind the other Red Bull of Sergio Perez until his teammate crashed out on the penultimate lap. Sadly, that crash is a massive problem for Red Bull. It destroyed Checo's car and the newly assembled underfloor which Red Bull hoped would be pivotal to them holding off McLaren. It certainly seemed to work for the Mexican. Team boss Christian Horner admitted the seriousness of the situation. Spare parts are in short supply. We'll have to work 5 days straight at the factory to get the necessary parts to Singapore in time for Friday. It was an excellent drive from Checo up until that point, which is a big positive for the team going forward. But looking back, Checo's impressive drive showed just what the team have been missing by ignoring the complaints of their second driver for the past year and a half. Perez's clear improvement in form signaled to Red Bull that the interventions on the underbody had helped. Technical Director Pierre Wash is optimistic that the failure at Monza opened the engineers' eyes to which areas of the underbody were causing the instability that had thrown the drivers off track. Horner explained how their decline in form has forced them to pay more attention to Sergio Perez. After the 2023 Spanish Grand Prix, Checo had huge concerns about the upgrades the team fitted, claiming they'd made the car worse, not better. Of course, with Verstappen still winning by ridiculous margins, the team ignored Checo, blaming his poor performances on a mental problem and a slump in form. Horner has now acknowledged just how wrong they were. We traced the development history back, and it turned out that the first mistake we made was with an underbody upgrade in 2023 in Barcelona. That was also the Grand Prix from which Checo started having problems with the car. We just didn't take it so seriously because Max kept winning. Checo has been hammered by the Red Bull team, the media, and fans for his poor performance level relative to Max Verstappen. And Red Bull's admission that they made mistakes in development just as Perez's performance has dropped will do little to make him feel better about that. Apologies may have been made in the background, but publicly at least, this is probably as good as Perez will get. After the upgrades were fitted in Spain 2023, Checo went as far as asking for them to be taken off his car. He thought they were so bad. The problem was that Verstappen won last year's race in Barcelona by 24 seconds to Lewis Hamilton in second, while Perez finished fourth behind George Russell. That win in Barcelona was Verstappen's third victory in a run of 10 consecutive triumphs before Carlos Sainz ended Red Bull's win streak in Singapore. Checo didn't suddenly become an incompetent driver. Max is just so talented that he could drive around the car's issues. He could compensate for the instability in the RB19 post-Spain and did the same at the start of the 2024 season with the RB20. Red Bull have continued with upgrades that have built on the mistakes made in 2023 though, and the RB20 has now hit a point where it is so unstable that even Max can't drive it to wins anymore. This is hardly the first time that a driver with incredible raw talent has caused a car to be developed incorrectly. A number of drivers in F1 history have the talent to drive around the problems of the car, causing the team to overlook them and inevitably missing an issue that should have been fixed. Alonso gave an interesting quote earlier in the season. He was saying how having a less skilled teammate like Lance Stroll is actually advantageous to him because they get caught by problems which Alonso will sometimes look past. I think sometimes I drive the car around the problems that we have, and that's sometimes a good thing because I can drive any car at any moment and extract the 90% of it. But to reach the 100% of the potential of the car, I'm not able to do sometimes without the help from my teammate on the special details on the setup or balance problems here and there. I think we benefit from each other in many different ways, and this is a good thing at the moment. Michael Schumacher's engineers often complained that even when there was an issue with the car, it wasn't obvious because Michael would just drive incredible laps anyway. The car would look perfect with him behind the wheel, but that was because he could compensate for a huge range of issues that would destroy his teammates' lap times. He was just that good. This is what happened with the RB20. It has become incredibly difficult to set up, to the point that the balance is right and the tyres are in the optimal window. Verstappen's Red Bull was set up slightly differently to Perez's, but that made a huge difference on the track. Perhaps it is now time for Verstappen to look to Perez for help. Max wore out the tyres much faster in traffic than Checo, Horner admitted. Normally, it's the other way around. Perez had a small gurney flap fitted to his rear wing, which provided a little more downforce and cost him 3 km an hour of top speed on the final straight. And he was a little softer on the rear axle. Verstappen complained in qualifying about a car that understeers and jumps at the apex of the corners. This could not be fixed for the race because you're not allowed to change anything in Parc Fermé. Unfortunately for Verstappen and Red Bull, this late in the season, budgets are tight and introducing fixes is going to be tough. The one saving grace is that after Singapore, they have a 3-weekend break to try and find a fix before the final 6 races of the season. Do you think they can do enough to help Verstappen retain the Drivers' Championship? And what do you think about Perez being right all along about the Red Bull car? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and until next time, drive safe and bye for now.